In this chapter, we're gonna adapt the solver to the cluster. Okay, so now I would like to set my active cluster, because as you can imagine, I don't want all of them to become soft body. So let's create a new attribute called active cluster just there. So I want to say if f at cluster is superior than, let's create a parameter, let's say ratio, then I at active cluster equal 1. So I'm going to add a blast just to check. So point at active cluster equal 1, and I want to keep it, so it doesn't work because I have my cluster on the float, on the primitive, sorry, but I do have a cluster on the point as well, so let's check it. And the cluster seems to be 0. Okay, so let's make it on the primitive, and here as well. And because I didn't set any parameter, so let's say 0.5, now I do have half of it. So I'm okay with that, but I would like to avoid that kind of things. So I'm going to compute another attribute called ptCount, and let's do it there. So I at ptCount equal 1, and I've prepared as well a quick example. So let's dive inside and see what happens. So I do have a grid with 2, 2, so it means that I have 4 points. I'm setting an attribute called ptCount equal to 0.5, and I'm just going to use the attribute promote by using the promotion method sum. This is basic, I guess you know that, but just in case, if we check now the detail attribute, we do have 2, because there is 4 points, so 0.5 times 4 equals 2. If it was 0.1, the result would be 0.4. And that's it. So this is what we are going to use. Add ptCount attribute. I want to make it red. I want to use an attribute promote from point to prim, and I want to use my cluster with the sum. So let's see. And I have to set the ptCount as well. So now we can check over the primitive, and now, as you can see here, this is the same cluster with 21 points. This one 72, and it changed for all the cluster. So this is good, and let's go back to the viewport. And here I want to say if f at cluster is superior than the ratio, and I at ptCount superior than, let's say, 10. And now if we go back just there, so before it was something like this, where for example the small one there. So let's get it back, and that's it. So now I want to rename add active cluster and attribute as well, and the red color. I don't need you anymore. And now I would like to check if everything works correctly. So let's get this one. Okay. This one seems to be good. Let's try the solver. Yes, it seems to be okay. And what about you? Yes, it works. So now I would like to add the cluster to this process. So it means, let's go back actually. If one point there belongs to an active cluster, then I want the entire cluster to become red, because otherwise I would have some stretchy polygons, and I don't want that. So let's go to the solver, and let's say here, or maybe there, with an attribute promote. Actually here, I want to look for the color, the CD, and I want to iterate over my cluster and get the maximum. But this one is going to iterate over each cluster even if the active cluster is set to 0. So I don't want that. And that's why I'm going to create another attribute wrangler here and say if I at active cluster equal 1, then at cd equal point, the second input, the color, and the ptnum. So if I go back there, but I guess I will have some problem here. Because of the my cluster, it's a primitive attribute, and actually same thing for the active cluster. So I'm going to promote those. But I'm not sure if I would have to keep the active cluster and my cluster to the primitive to do some operations, so I'm just going to create new one. So from primitive, I want the active cluster to the point with the average, and I'm not going to delete the original, I'm just going to change the name. So let's copy paste this one, and P for point. So let's do the same thing here for my cluster. My cluster, and copy paste here with P. So I should have active cluster P and my cluster P with 8000, which is what we want. Let's make it a bit more organized. Let's say like this and like this. Okay, and let's go back to this one. So it's still not working, but I just need to set P, and now it's okay, and same thing there. Okay, let's call it set cd from my cluster P, and with a red color. Okay, and I would like to check if it works. So let's make it 10. And it seems to be okay. So let's see frame by frame. Yes, this is what I want. And I would like to check as well if it works with the rest position. So let's see. Up. Yes. This is exactly what I need. Good. So now I would like to cache everything, but I'm going to keep here, let's say, my cluster. And maybe another one. Yes, maybe the PT count. Good, so now let's cache it there and there.